Our next guest, Ron Yiash, is here to shed some light on helping special needs families keep life simple. Welcome, Ron. So my first question is, can you explain to me how complex having a disability for especially a child in a family, what that can do to someone, especially their finances?
So it's a good question. I would liken it to a reality show of, let's say, a chef reality show, where you walk in, things are really tense. Everybody's on, a pressure type of environment. Things are flying, and there are a lot of expectations. And all of a sudden, you have to take all the ingredients, and you have to kind of make something beautiful. So that's what walking into a life of a family who has a child with special needs is like. You don't know what you're going to get. The families are very unique and very different. The individual with special needs is very different. And the social dynamic of the entire family really shifts and changes depending on how the family handles the situation.
Well, so many people talk about a 529.
Sure.
What is a 529A ABLE account? It's fairly new. Explain that, please.
Okay, so before explaining that, you have to understand.
1 second. Sorry, I wasn't going to be able to hold that in.
No problem.
Let me start that again. Sorry. There is a new program out there, the 529A ABLE account. It's pretty new. Can you please explain that for us?
Sure. But first, I'd like to explain why that may be significant to a family who has a child with special needs. So in order to get services in most all the states, an individual with special needs has to have a certain amount of need and be on a certain level of poverty line. So for the most part, under $2,000 in assets in order to get benefits, Social Security, disability benefits, etc. So what happens if somebody winds up getting a gift for a Sweet 16 or a graduation or a bar mitzvah? That money adds up. So where does that money go? So the government came up with this idea of having a 529 account where this individual with special needs can have up to $14,000 a year put in without impacting their services.
That's great.
Yes.
Because I actually have a family member now who was told that in order to get Medicaid assistance, they had to get rid of almost all their assets, similar to the $2,000. So is that possible? If someone's on the cusp, is it possible to do a spend down in order to get that qualifying amount?
You definitely can do a spend down. It depends on the family's situation. The ideal is to have a special needs family trust. That's very expensive, and it's not easy for a family to come up with $3,000 to $5,000 to create a trust. So this is another option for families to be able to save to have that, so that they could get the services. But there is a little bit of a difference between a special needs trust and the 529. The special needs trust, after the individual expires or dies, that money can get dispersed to anybody, and the government doesn't go in and claw it back.
So I have a relative who has someone with a special need, but she's now an adult. But her parents in their 70s are concerned. So we are talking right now about children, but even though this person is an adult, if you're talking about a child who is maybe 16, 17, even 20, 21 years old, but the parents don't see that child being able to care for themselves. Do you recommend that? Because unfortunately, people do pass away together, parents.
Right.
So what if they're going out together for any reason whatsoever, and they have to leave this child with a caretaker? Do you recommend a special provision in a will as part of being a responsible parent to take care of this child, maybe of a trust? How do they disperse a large or any size of money in a will to this child to make sure they're maintained and taken care of?
Okay, so there are really two parts to this. One part, I would say, it's important to have another component besides for the will, something the families don't do often enough. It's called a letter of intent.
Oh, what is a letter of intent?
A letter of intent is basically a guide to give the next person who's going to be taking care of your child to be able to fulfill that child's life the way you envision it. as complex as their personal habits, their personal needs. Johnny, is having a really tough time going to sleep every single night, and no one knows why, because mom forgot to tell the person who's caring, either in a group home or whatever environment, that Johnny needs his pink pacifier in his left hand. Otherwise, he won't go to sleep. Or certain, hygiene care or certain medical care. So the letter of intent is crucial. And then side by side to that, you definitely want to have a will. You definitely want to have a will articulating who the money is going towards. But if you could afford it, ideally, you want to have a special needs family trust.
So there is such a thing as a special trust for the special needs trust.
Yes.
I was not aware of this.
Yes.
And so my next question is, everyone who has a special needs child is naturally not a wealthy family. It's a cross-section of the public.
Correct.
Is there ever any kind of place that they can go to provide resources to get help for this? Or do they only have the resource of going to an attorney and that's it? Any suggestions on that?
So I would say families really should reach out to two groups. One is ARC, any not-for-profit in the local.
What is ARC?
So ARC is a not-for-profit that most communities have that focus on families of children with special needs, providing resources, providing workshops. They're really amazing. And it's also a good opportunity to meet other families in similar type of situation where they can network.
Oh, so they can have a support group as well as other types of resources provided for them.
Correct. So families find, I find a lot of families are under a lot of stress. Unfortunately, divorce is higher in family with special needs.
So that is another statistic, because of course we've had specials on our show previously, attorneys and other guests.
Right.
So let me ask you this, because you have more of a pressure cooker situation, because of course a special need child would, I would assume, innately cost more for the family and be more of a financial burden, just the day-to-day operations. Do you ever see, as someone who works a lot frequently with this, specializing in this type of family, do you ever see more divorce because of stress or maybe other financial constraints? For example, increased domestic violence, or perhaps maybe increased likelihood of losing their home because of that financial pressure put on upon them by the special needs child?
Okay, so there is definitely pressure financially, but there's also pressure socially. What I hear a lot is, from the parents and from the siblings. Siblings are a really key part of this. I'm losing my sense of self. I'm not there. The sibling is feeling like the entire family is revolving around this child. Where is their place? Why aren't people caring for them? What is going to happen when mom and dad are not around? Am I just expected to take care of the child? I didn't ask for this. Why am I in this position? So the social emotional component I find to be really crucial. Of course, there's a financial piece, and we're very thankful to organizations like the state and the federal, and as well as not-for-profits that really step in and help guide families through that financial component, as well as individuals like myself who focus on families with special needs.
Fantastic. Now we do have to wrap up, so can you give us just one little quick takeaway on what you'd recommend for parents of disabled children to do? What's something that they could have as a great resource? Okay, so can you tell me real quick, what's one last parting pearl of wisdom you can provide?
Get advice.
Get advice. So where would they look for advice? Is it a CPA situation? Is it a attorney situation? Or do they just trust that you think that ARC is a great place for anyone of any kind of disability? Because I know it originally stood for Association of Retarded Citizens, right?
Correct.
Originally, but this is a long time ago, so
Correct.
Of course they broadened the scope. So do you think anyone could go to ARC and maybe they could provide them further information?
So I would say ARC is definitely a backbone in the special needs community. But getting advice, if individuals want help with taxes, they go to a tax attorney, they go to a CPA. If individuals want help medically, they go to a doctor. It's important to seek guidance because you don't have to have this on your plate, and that financial pressure can be relieved if you get the right support.
Great. Thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate you coming in to
Thanks.
help our viewing audience.